Welcome to the League of Women Voters Zooming with the Aldermen interviews. My name is Elona Reishnis. The League was founded 101 years ago right here in Chicago and is now active in all 50 states and in the US Virgin Islands. We are a wide network. The League is nonpartisan. It's an organization that neither supports nor opposes political candidates. The League encourages informed, active participation by citizens in how we govern ourselves. It works to increase understanding of public policy and seeks to influence public policy through education and advocacy. Among us are civic-minded Democrats and Republicans and unaffiliated women and also men, because men have been League members since 1974. These interviews with the aldermen are part of our effort to educate voters about who speaks on our behalf at the Chicago City Council, where the policies and ordinances that govern our city are developed. Today, our guest is the alderwoman of the 16th Ward, Stephanie Coleman. Welcome, Alderwoman Coleman, and thank you for making time for this interview.
Thank you.
This Zoom session is being recorded and will be available on the League website. We'll be sending you, Alderwoman, and those who registered for this program and are not League members, a link to the video. We provided Alderwoman Coleman our questions prior to this interview. We'll start by looking at a map of all 50 wards of Chicago. Let's see if we can see the map. Okay. And then we will zoom in on the map of the 16th ward. Okay. Alderwoman, would you quickly mention the main boundaries of your ward?
Sure. On the furthest north is 51st Street, and on our furthest south boundary, it's 70th. Furthest east is Emerald, and our furthest west is Kedzie. So I always say definitive 51st to 70th, Halsted to Kedzie are our boundaries. And as you can see in the map, we dip in and out.
Yes. Is your ward residential, commercial, or industrial?
Majority residential, and working hard every day to get more businesses and more commercial in the 16th ward.
Okay. Anything mentionable about any of your neighborhoods?
Our neighborhoods are made up of Gage Park, Back of the Yards, New City, Inglewood, and Chicago Lawn.
Okay. What would you say are some of the main concerns of the people in your ward?
Right now, I always say we don't have a gun problem. We have an investment issue. That is the root of the gun violence, not only in the city of Chicago, but it's especially in the 16th ward. Public safety. We all want access to quality education for our children, our future. We want our children to be competitive in the workforce, which right now high quality education must be instilled in them right now. Access to financial literacy and access to resources for more homeowners. So when our children do get that good education, and those that go to college, that they're able to come back and invest in their community, that they will live the American dream, and that is have an opportunity at home ownership. So really making sure that financial literacy is a huge proponent, but it all goes down to investment. Resources, and being accessible to capital.
Okay. What prompted you to run for alderperson?
That is a wonderful question. I often say that while I have a family political background, I was no way interested in ever running for office. And when I graduated with my master's, in 2014, there was some announcements about the Inglewood community, specifically at 63rd and Halsted. I heard about the new Whole Foods on Fox News, and I started to do a little research, and I knew about the Inglewood TIF because, again, growing up, I remember hearing about TIF when I was in 4th grade. And I found out that our hard-earned resources were being used to incentivize some companies and some things, and I did not understand why, and the community did not have much input or much participation on this development. And I decided to run for office just to share the information. I always say keeping our ward and our communities informed and involved. That is why I ran, and I had a wonderful support system, my community, my family, my church, community stakeholders, and here we are 7 years later.
All right. Do you have any additional employment?
I do not. I am full-time alderman.
All right, okay. Alderpersons make up the Chicago City Council. What committees do you serve on?
I serve on the Education Committee, on the Health and Human Relations, Rules, the License and Consumer Protection, as well as Pedestrian and Highway, and I am the chair of the Subcommittee on Reparations.
All right. Do you have any ideas about how the City Council's operations could be improved?
Oh, every day. I think every day. I think that all 49 of my other colleagues would have some recommendations and suggestions on how the City Council and our processes can be improved, starting with the rules. But absolutely, and I think that you would hear that general consensus from my colleagues.
Can you give us an example?
Well, specifically, are you speaking legislatively, morally, ethically?
Well, when you think of improved, what comes to mind?
I think that this wonderful book right here could be revisited by some folks. Our rules and orders and procedures, which I keep with me next to my cell phone and my Bible. Definitely some rules and the order of how our city government is ran could be improved. I definitely think as a freshman alderman, I wish that there was better and more updated to make those ordinances and legislation now applicable to today versus some of the, the rules and even some legislation that was, passed, went through committee, approved by committee. However, it still stays right there where it was in 1999, and it hasn't been revisited. Yeah. Specifically, I'm thinking of with procurement in City Council, a legislation was passed, an ordinance was passed, and it has not been put into effect. So we have done a poor job to following up and following through on certain legislation, and that should not be the case. So,
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Much of an alderperson's time is taken up with deciding various ordinances, like parking prohibited designations, loading and standing zones, residential permit parking zones, traffic warning signs and signals, grants of privilege in the public way, and so on. Do you think that the departments could be allowed to make those decisions if the alderperson were consultant about those decisions?
Well, unfortunately, that is not my narrative in serving my ward. Most of my time is not spent on those multiple, on the legislative side in a ward like mine. My time is spent on serving my residents, on making sure that weeds are being cut, that they are receiving garbage carts, that we're getting the investment in infrastructure, that we are getting quality city services while also doing parking permits, presenting and supporting good legislation and ordinance that affect communities. But in the 16th ward, we cannot generalize what every alderman does or how we spend our time, because we serve very diverse wards. My ward is not the same as the 44th ward. As I love Alderman Tunney, we do not have the same challenges. My ward, we have different challenges. I have over 200 vacant lots. Alderman Tunney may have one vacant lot, if that, and it's probably being developed as we speak. So we can't generalize every ward, but it is a ward by ward, especially those wards on the south and west side.
Okay. The League has long supported having an independent commission rather than the aldermen determine ward boundaries. Would you support creating an independent commission to draw the next set of ward boundaries? If yes, what would you want incorporated in such a concept? If not, what are your arguments for continuing the current practice?
You know what? I think that I and we as a Black Caucus, we have legislative obligations seriously and in creating a map that best represents communities, racially, ethnically, culturally, and geographically, to ensure that the city council for the next decade really has a democratic process as much as possible. I am supporting a transparent process with a map that will be discussed and voted on. But my focus during this process will be first to ensure that residents in my ward are kept within natural and logical boundaries. And second, that the Black community citywide has its proper representation. If we historically look over the last 50 years, that remapping in the city has been about undoing the undemocratic maps and racially inspired boundaries that kept powers from Black and brown people. That's where I stand on making sure that we have a transparent process, but making sure that those communities that are ethically made up of represent those communities.
Right. Okay, let's go to the next question. Currently, during the February election, when one candidate for mayor or alderman does not receive at least 50% plus one vote, we hold a runoff election for the two top vote getters in April. Now, instead of a runoff election to determine the winner, some states are switching to ranked choice voting. Before asking your opinion about ranked choice voting for Chicago, let me remind our viewers how ranked choice voting works. Ranked choice voting does away with the runoff election because it uses the votes already cast. In ranked choice voting, a voter ranks the candidates on their ballot by his or her order of preference. It could be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, and so on. If the first ranked candidate of more than half of the voters gets 50% plus one votes, that candidate wins, exactly like now. However, if after counting the votes for everyone's first choice candidate, there is no majority winner, this is what happens. The candidate who gets the fewest votes is eliminated. Then the votes are counted for everyone's second ranked candidate, including the votes of the voters whose first choice candidate was the eliminated candidate. And the process continues until there is a majority winner. Now back to the question. What is your thinking about using ranked choice voting in February and making the April runoff no longer necessary in Chicago?
I think that that's a great question, and it makes me smile because Chicago has historically, with the 50+1, our election is just that, but on a statewide and other races, it's majority, whomever wins the majority, whether that's 30% or 80%, whoever gets majority of the vote. It's all about a fair process, and I never want for any community of any ward or any district to those residents' voices are not heard. If those residents, those constituents and those voters have a majority vote for a candidate, that is who should hold that position.
Okay, you know what I forgot to say, but it was for mayor and alderman. Ranked choice vote. So, all right. Would you like to add anything else on, or that's it?
That's it. I believe majority should always prevail. And it's interesting. I would even love to know why the 50+1 some 50 years ago, when that was, why it's applicable to Chicago versus legislatives and, state and county wide.
Okay. Well, your
term, we'll have to know that history. One should be presented with the history of how Chicago, yes, why we have, and again, it all goes back to revisiting the past. In order to change the future and go into the future, we must recognize the past and the present. And if we really want to talk about undoing and redoing some things, we have to know our history.
All right. Okay. Good for you. Okay, your term ends in 2023, right? What are several of the things you really would like to get done during that time, or at least started?
No one was prepared for COVID. In the last 16 months, I have personally had to pivot in this pandemic on how I interact with my residents. I had, for the first 9 months from May up until March, every month community meetings, every week open ward night. I was out in the field on Fridays. So I have been stripped of those things. And we have pivoted in this pandemic, but I have not stopped working. I've actually become wiser, as you could imagine, in 2 years in office, wiser, and have worked even more in this digital and in this Zoom space of fighting for resources, of getting development. For example, we have 102 62 and older new building in the 16th ward. I have worked with a developer to get more quality housing. I am advocating for mixed use. So bringing those resources to attract, so that we will have job opportunities, so that we will have more housing to address the housing insecurities. We're just today in the housing committee, I'm advocating so that we will get a new grocery store at 63rd and Racine in the Inglewood community, where lots will consider is a food desert, but making sure that we have the same quality businesses, the same quality infrastructure, the same quality development as any other of the 76 communities or any of the other 49 wards in the city of Chicago should all reflect the most beautiful city in the world, right? The beautiful skyline, the beautiful businesses, the wonderful food, the wonderful families that make up communities. We have to invest in people and invest in the family structure in order for our communities to thrive. That has been my goal. That is my dream. That is what I work hard every day. I want to save the world, but first I've got to save my block. And that is what I'm doing block by block.
All right. Alderwoman Coleman, thank you for being with us today. You are helping many Chicagoans become acquainted with the 16th ward. Reminder to everybody who is watching, you will find a link to this interview and links to our interviews with other alderpersons on the League of Women Voters Chicago website. Anyone who registered for today's program and is not a League member will receive an email with a link, also an invitation to sign up for notices of our future programs, and also an invitation to join the League. We are always looking for civic-minded, energetic, and entrepreneurial people who believe that strengthening democracy is worth their time. The next premiere will be August 5 with Alderwoman Michelle Harris of the 8th Ward. We hope you will join us often as we learn about Chicago and its elected officials, one ward at a time. Thank you.
Thank you.